It's Halloween and we have a special surprise, some spooky creatures before your eyes, snakes and spiders for you to see. Welcome to Halloween with Mary Z.
Happy Halloween! I love Halloween. It's one of my favorite seasons. And what do we think of when we think of Halloween? We think of creepy crawlies. I've got one right here. Today we're going to be talking about all kinds of cool creepy crawlies. This is a Madagascar hissing cockroach. Of course, she comes from the island of Madagascar, and she's called a hissing cockroach because these spiracles, which insects use to breathe, are where she pushes air out to make a hissing sound to surprise any predators and give her a chance to get away. So you can hear her do that when she's worried about something. Fortunately, she's not too worried about me. She might look creepy, but when you find out her name, maybe she's not so creepy anymore. We named her Jigglypuff. And I use her to help kids understand creepy crawly animals. A Madagascar hissing cockroach is not a pest the way that some of the cockroaches are that we're used to. They eat leaf litter on the forest floors in Madagascar, and they're helpful. They don't come into people's houses, they don't eat people food, so this is not an animal that you would ever really have to worry about. Cockroaches. But did you know that there are 4,500 kinds of cockroaches in the world and only 30 of them are pests? You might hear me calling it a her. Well, I know that this is a female because the males have wider antennae and they have little horns up here on top of their carapace. So her antennae are these little pokey things up in front, and that's how she smells and feels her way around so she knows where she's going. If you look at her legs, she has little hooks, and those hooks help her to hang on where she's crawling. She's a very, very good climber. Definitely a friend, not a foe. What's an animal that you think of when you think of Halloween? Is it owls? There is an owl box right above us, and there is a barn owl who lives in it. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard a barn owl call, but at night when I'm walking my dog, the barn owl likes to fly right over my head and then scream at me. Let's see if we can find any evidence that the barn owl is around. Wait, why are we not seeing the barn owl right now? It's nocturnal, but we can look for clues that it lives there. Wait, look, I found something. Check this out. This is an owl feather. Remember when I said that the owl will fly over my head? I never hear it coming, and this is why. These little fringes along the edge of the flight feather lets the air pass through and gives this animal silent flight. If I wave it through the air, you can't hear it at all. It's great for a nocturnal hunter, huh? What else I see something it's eaten or tried to eat. Check out this. What is that? Looks like a dead mouse. That would be delicious for an owl. And right next to it is an owl pellet. When an owl eats a rodent or some other animal, it can't digest the bones in the fur. So the bones in the fur go into a special part of its body that compacts them, and then the owl will cough it up, sort of like a cat coughs up a hairball. Now sometimes if you look in it, you can find bones, including skulls, of the mice that they ate. Let's look a little closer. I see a bone right here. Okay, I'm just gonna use my fingers and then we'll wash my hands. There's a little bone. They look like, what is that? Vertebrae? I don't know. Ooh, look at those bones. That is cool. Wow, lots of little ribs and legs. Wonder if there's a skull in here somewhere. I think that's, oh yeah, that's a skull. Ooh, look at this. This is the jaw of one of the rodents that mouse ate. Can you see this big incisor tooth here? And then look closely along the edge and you'll see the molars of the mouse or the rat that this owl ate. There are clues everywhere to the creepy crawlies in the neighborhood. I'm hoping we have a chance to see the owl who lives in that box. But while we're waiting, I thought you might like to take a look at a replica of an owl's skull. You can see that beak is made for ripping apart prey, but maybe what's most interesting are the eyes. Their eyes are so big for their head, they barely fit in there, and that allows them to have more light rods in their eyes, which allows them to see really, really well at night. They only need the light of one candle to see across a football field. Their eyes are so big in proportion to their heads that if our eyes were that size, we'd have eyes the size of grapefruits. And because their eyes are fixed in their head, they can't move them back and forth like we can. When you do this, you're doing something an owl can never do. So to make up for that, an owl can turn their head much farther than we can. They can turn their head 270 degrees. And the way they can do that is because they have extra neck bones, 14 compared to our 7. Even a giraffe only has 7 neck bones. When people think of creepy crawlies, this is one of the first kinds of animals they think of. But let me introduce you to Sage. She is a Rosy boa, and she is anything but creepy. This animal does not feel slimy. If you've ever felt one, they feel a little bit like a basketball. Very dry, very bumpy. And Rosy boas are known for having 3 stripes on their back. You can see that she is sort of a brownish, reddish, and then a gray. And then underneath, she's cookies and cream. Hi, Sage. What is Sage doing with that tongue, do you think? Well, you might know snakes smell with their tongue. So what they do with that forked tongue is they pick up air molecules on either side of their body and then puts that tongue, the forked tongue, into 2 little holes in the roof of her mouth called the Jacobson's organ. And that Jacobson's organ sends information to her brain about what's going on around her. So she can tell that she's looking into a camera and that that's not a mouse. Are you feeling camera shy? Well, she never blinks, she doesn't have eyelids, so I guess we can't tell. Snakes are amazingly adapted to catch animals even though they don't have any legs. In fact, scientists think that the reason snakes evolved to not have legs is so that they can better go into burrows of the small rodents that they eat. And when I say small rodents, something that is 4 times bigger than her head is no match for Sage. She has special bones in her jaw called quadrate bones, which allow her to open her jaws and swallow in one bite an animal 4 times bigger than her head. That'd be like me trying to take on a whole watermelon. Sage is a constrictor, which means that in order to disable her prey, she squeezes them every time they take a breath until they finally pass out. That makes it safe for her to eat them. She has to worry about their sharp teeth and claws. Rattlesnakes are lucky because they have venom, and they can bite that rodent with one bite, which eventually paralyzes the rodent and makes it safe for the rattlesnake to eat it. Now here's kind of a creepy cool fact about Sage. When she sheds her skin, she sheds it inside out. It's like pulling off your sock. So this is one of Sage's recent sheds. When a snake grows bigger, the old skin gets tight and itchy and dry, and she'll crawl right out of it with a nice, stretchy, supple skin underneath it that she can grow into. This is her old skin, and you can see she shed it inside out. How's that for creepy? On this side, you can even see where her eyes were. Sometimes people are nervous about snakes because they think that they don't have any bones and they're just so different from people. But the truth is, she has a lot of the same bones we do. Her back has a really, really long spine, just like your spine. And her front has a lot of ribs, many, many more than we do. So she's got a spine and ribs that go all the way down her body. Rosy boas are one of the slowest snakes in the world, and they can be found in the wild in San Diego. The animals that I'm showing you are all my pets. I would never pick up a wild snake, especially if you don't know what kind it is. Everybody asks me, does she bite? Well, I say anything with a mouth can bite. I could bite, but you don't expect me to. I don't expect Sage to bite, but if you pick up a wild snake, they're scared, and you never know what they might do. If you see a snake in the wild, stand back and watch it and appreciate it, but don't try to approach it. So this is a really common sight around Halloween. A lot of us have these big orb weaver spiders making some pretty intricate circular webs around our neighborhoods. The spiders who live in the middle of them are called orb weavers. This one happens to be a spotted orb weaver. These are the females who make these webs. And the males are much smaller, usually hanging out towards the sides of the webs. When they try to approach the female for mating, they hope they don't get eaten and mistaken for prey. The female makes those webs every night to catch prey, and then in the morning, if the nest is destroyed, she'll eat what remains of it and make a new one again. But don't worry, they're harmless. This is my friend Blue. He is a bearded dragon, and he's got a little bit of a creepy look to him. Look at all those spikes. Well, those spikes definitely could scare off a predator, but his secret is they're actually kind of soft. Unless he gets upset, in which case he makes his body sort of full of air and the spikes get much harder, so they do prick a little bit. But Blue is not a very scary guy. Bearded dragons make good pets. They originally come from Australia, but they're a very popular pet. This guy is 12 years old. They can live to be up to 17 or so. Now when Blue gets upset, or when a wild bearded dragon would see another male, he would inflate his beard and turn it black, and then bob his head up and down to draw attention to it. That's his way of defending a territory. He might also do that if he sees a female that he likes. And if the female likes him back, she might take her hand and wave at him. His ears, as you can see, are kind of hollow holes. A lot of animals who live in dry, hot climates have that kind of ear. It allows the air to pass through and cool off their head. And maybe the most amazing thing about bearded dragons is their third eye. Now, you probably don't see a third eye, right? But his third eye, sometimes called a pineal eye, is on the tip of his head. It's just a little black dot, and it can only see light and dark. It doesn't see pictures. But think about how being able to see light and dark would benefit him. You can try it yourself. If you lightly close your eyes and face a light source, and then wave your hand in front of your eye, see how it gets light and dark, light and dark? Well, that might help him avoid a predator like a bird who flies over him. He sees the shadow before it gets close enough to grab him, and he can take off. Now, like I said, this is a popular pet here, wild in Australia, but in the Southwest United States, we do have a lizard that looks very similar called a horned toad or horny toad. That's really a misnomer because they're not a toad at all. So I call them horned lizards. The coast horned lizard is the one that we find around San Diego. It's becoming very rare due to habitat destruction and because the horned lizard only eats one kind of ant here in San Diego, and it's not the Argentine ant, which is a non-native invasive ant. So horned lizards here are kind of a rarity, but I think horned lizards have the coolest defense mechanism of any reptile I know. You're never going to believe this, but if a predator approaches a horned lizard, they can squirt blood out of their eyes. How do they do it? Well, they raise their blood pressure and then they squeeze the muscles by their eye, and they can shoot some blood, a stream of blood, in a specific direction pretty far towards a predator. And not only does that surprise the predator, but it also has kind of an anti-canine effect. The chemical component of it is one that canines don't like. So foxes and dogs and coyotes will run away. And he likes being in the sun because he's a reptile. So he is cold-blooded. And of course, that doesn't mean that his blood is literally cold. It means that his temperature changes according to his external environment. So if he's sitting in the sun, he warms up. And reptiles like to be warm.
We want you to enjoy your Halloween, but don't go near these spooky scenes. Stay away from goblins and witches brew, and we'll see you next year for season 2.